so we can. All right. So great. So I know that I don't know. I guess I'm assuming that you have been following my channel. So in case anybody is wondering, this is Walter Schofield at Krell. Basically, he is the COO of Krell currently. And why don't you tell us a little bit about you, Walter, about and the audience as far as give us a little brief introduction.
Yeah, I'm a lifer in the business, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing from other people's perspective, but I love what I do. I started off working in retail for about 15 years. I started when I was 15 years old. I don't know if you remember Tech Hi-Fi back in the day on the East Coast of the US, but did that, got my first job in the manufacturing sector working with the boys at Equity Audio, Equity International, who were Bowers and Wilkins, Rotel Distribution, and I wore the CWD, Custom Woodwork and Design, which is a purpose-designed audio-video furniture line. I also wore the B&W and Rotel hat on the road and crisscrossed the country extensively, where I met a wonderful group of dealers out there, the blue chip dealers in the country, and a lot of others. It was a wonderful time. I worked with Lynn Products out of Scotland as a national sales manager for them for a while. And post that, I was recruited to run the Mark Levinson division for Harman. Back after, well, I got called in after they shut the factory down in Connecticut to rebuild the business. And I hung out with Harman for a few years, and then I was recruited to become the president of Meridian in North America. Basically leading up to where I am at Krell now, I've kind of been a guy that's kind of been brought in to right the ship and or try to find new business opportunities.
How long have you been at Krell now?
I joined Krell in September 3 years ago, 2018, about 3 years.
So you were part of this new, when you got there, I'm assuming you were part of the new XD series of amplifiers that they have, or that was after when you got there?
No, they were just being about introduced a few months after I got there. Basically what happened was Krell went through a pretty bad period where they had reliability issues due to, quite frankly, everybody kind of knows this, a partnership, an investor that I'll just leave it at didn't necessarily understand the iconic nature of the brand.
Okay.
When that person left, Rondi D'Agostino went back in to rescue the company, if you will, and she spent the better part of 2 years replacing amplifiers, making things right with distributors and dealers. That's really when the resurgence of the brand started. I had written Rondi a little bit of a business plan focusing on reliability and sound quality. When I walked through the door in September of 2018, they had already taken care of the reliability issues in the form of an average of 13 to 14 engineering change orders per unit. And what that did was it resourced all of the parts back to our original providers to maintain reliability and performance, as well as other things within the products that enhanced reliability, and of course the XD upgrades.
Correct. Agreed. Yeah, and that was something that to be honest with you, I did not get a chance to hear the new XD. I did hear the 575 solos that before that upgrade was brought on board. And of course, I've owned a lot of the 402s. I wanted to buy a pair of 900Es. I like big amplifiers, right? And so we all know here, a lot of my audience knows that Krell has always been known for just being mules, for being powerful amplifiers with tremendous control, huge dynamic swings, and obviously big. They run hot, they're heavy, and that's part of the design, right? For many, many decades that Krell has always gone after. I'm personally very, very much, and I could be crazy by saying this, but I like big amplifiers. I've always felt like I don't know, it's just there's more real estate. I can actually feel what I paid for. I can feel the weight, the metal, the finish, all of that. And it's been hard for me to adopt Class D amplification, I think partially because of that, because of the fact that it's still being, I think, explored by a lot of different manufacturers. I think they're still exploring Class D, but there, to me right now, there hasn't been a direct replacement of pure Class A amplification. I don't feel that today I have found a better topology amplifier design, if you will, than Class A. Now, there are some neat amplifiers out there, Class AB design to be specific, that mimic a lot of that tube sound. And they get very, very romantic, very detailed, Constellation being one of them. And I do like what they do. But I think Krell, when I think of Class A, I always think of Krell. Always been that way. You know, I have gone through probably 300 amplifiers in my life over the last 5 years, from, you know, Krells to crazy amplification that cost more than a house. But I have been able to go up the ladder and begin to assess what each company is doing in terms of the tonality, in terms of the sound quality. I don't really focus too much on the resume of the company, if you will. And the reason for that is, as I stated on my video, is we don't really care what you did in 1996, right? I care about what have you done as of the last 5 to 10 years. And this is a perfect segue so that you can pretty much tell us like what is fundamentally different with this new XD amplifier.
Well, I want to also address your buying audio by the pound scenario. Yeah. Which, by the way, I completely have adhered to my entire life. The same thing, you know, you go over and kind of pop up the corner of it and go, oh, that weighs a good amount, right?
Yep.
But I will tell you that the adoption of the iBias technology eliminated a lot of necessary heat sink, which a lot of the weight comes from. Mm-hmm. Now, iBias technology is efficient. It's a scheme where it looks at the relationship between the output of the amplifier and the loudspeaker itself, exchanging information back and forth relative to the impedance, the current demands, and it does it so quickly that it doesn't, you know, truncate or delay the signal thousands of times per second. But that the iBias technology was incorporated for 3 reasons. One, it's more efficient in terms of pulling power from the wall. Right, it idles at a much lower current.
And I love that. Been very vocal about that.
It also saves from heat buildup because it's not constantly biased in full Class A. It's kind of like running a Ferrari with your foot on the pedal the whole time, a Class A amp, right? All the way to the floor, just to be ready for a couple of watts, right? What the iBias does is it tracks it, so therefore it doesn't generate as much heat. And then the third factor is it preserves the components inside of the box. We all know that Class A amplifiers that run very, very, very hot, they really have, after some time, a degradation or, you know, they fail quicker. They just do.
They do.
So that's why we incorporated iBias, which took our amplifiers from a couple of 100 pounds down to, you know, 70 or 80 pounds. Mm-hmm. So there's real technology behind that. The other factor, Jay, is, look, our tagline is the leader in audio engineering. And we live by that mantra, meaning the iBias technology was introduced. XD technology was introduced, and that was incorporated into the K300i integrated amplifier that's listed in Class A and stereophile. That's a little $8,500 integrated amp. And while the nomenclature of XD is not on that amplifier, it is where David Goodman, who, by the way, and I'm addressing a comment that you made in one of your recent videos, has been with Krell for 36 years. So while we had the departure of the namesake of the company, a gentleman who has been deeply, deeply involved in the development of products, including full power balanced and the Evo in all of our amplifiers, is still with us today.
Okay.
He's also one of the co-developers of iBias. I will give the credit of that to a Mr. Todd Eichenbaum. He was actually the lead on that when he worked with Krell He's currently working with the folks over at Levinson. He's a friend, love him. So I'm going to give him the credit there. But that was an evolution of sustained plateau biasing, which was David Goodman's discovery and implementation. So we do have our talent that's been with Krell since the very, very beginning of time still with us, aware of all the legacy products, a big hand in developing those and moving forward. Now, the XD technology then, after it was met with such success in the K300i, was put into place at the very beginning of 2019 with all of our amplifiers. David went back, looked at the topology and incorporated it into all of our amplifiers, with the Theater 7 being the very last one, which was around February of 2019 or maybe March. And what the XD technology does, Jay, is something that you would appreciate hearing. And this is why I reached out to you, was because I know that you were evaluating, because I went and I looked at your list of things that you listened to base your last video on, and I saw it was a Duo 300, but not an XD version. And I'm like,
correct.
Oh my God, man.
That's right.
I'm like, I really need this guy to hear an XD amplifier.
Yep.
I really need him to hear
I'd be
one.
more than happy to definitely assess the XD, specifically, definitely if you a 575 soul or something like that, you know, to give a better understanding, right, of what your extreme expression of sound is, right? That will ultimately be the 575 XD, right? That's really the top of what you currently build. Now, I will say I have seen a couple of pictures. I don't know if they're fake pictures of what seems to be a new amplifier. I've seen the chassis of this new amplifier. I might pull it up from the internet once I release this video, show the audience. I don't know if this is true or not true, but it does remind me of the chassis from the old Evolution series amplification. It looks like it's aluminum finish. I do not know, again, if this is something that's going to come down the road and you guys are planning on releasing something. I know a lot of manufacturers are very secretive, and I understand that, right, with what you currently have going on. But it would be interesting, to be honest with you, to see, and if maybe this is a good question right now, is have you considered, and I know it might sound like going backwards in time, right, but have you thought about perhaps saying, you know what, we have invested, and I'm sure you guys have invested a ton of money on the XD developments and all of that, right? It takes a lot of resources to create innovation, which, by the way, I applaud you for, because this is what I've been saying about past labs. They gotta innovate, and I even said it. Krell did the innovation of creating the iBias, right? You guys did that. You guys did a lot of cool things with that design, and I definitely give you a lot of props for that. I'm big on that. I believe that just like anything else that we currently consume, whether it be cars, food, any sort of technology, everything evolves. And if you don't move forward, you're going to get left behind by companies that were never on your radar, period. I'm a believer of that. And I think we have a lot of companies currently in this business that it's a business. Let's face it. At the end of the day, it has to be profitable or else it doesn't make sense. So I'm quite aware of that. But what I have noticed, Walter, lately, and I was talking to a couple of dealers, is that there are more and more manufacturers that are deciding to build components that they're not necessarily known for. For instance, you have always built, let's say, a DAC, and all of a sudden you want to take on Krell, and you want to take on past labs, and you want to take. For me, that's kind of a tough pill to swallow, because I do believe, Walter, that if you're going to enter an arena dominated by the big boys, by those brands, by those amplifier brands like Krell, right? You need to study the market. You need to figure out who is your direct competition. Right now, do you personally feel that when you, Krell, build an amplifier and you price it at, let's just say $20,000, let's just give a random number, do you look at your competition at that price point, or you just kind of say it cost us, I don't know, hypothetically $10,000, so the MSRP is going to be 20? Or how do you guys go about placing product in the market? What is usually the deciding factor as to where it will land in terms of a price? And if you do, of course, look at whoever you consider your competition to be, or the other options at that price point.
Well, you've asked me a few questions, and I'm going to go back to the very beginning here.
Yes.
And by the way, I just noticed that my video is not on, and I apologize. I
No,
should
no
have
problem.
started that from the very beginning.
No, go ahead.
Just
It'll go.
noticed that it wasn't, but I don't look so hot today, so I'm going to leave it
It's
off.
all good. Put it up. That'd be great to see you.
I'm not sure if it's going to be great to see me.
I see you. Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you. Great. Awesome.
Sorry about that, man.
No, it's all good.
I just noticed that my video was off, and I'm looking at me going on. Jay, a few things. I want to go back to the XD technology a little bit, just to let you know what it does, because look, we recognize at Krell that sound quality to us is synonymous with best quality product. We're never, ever, ever going to stop doing that. Whereas a lot of companies that will remain nameless tend to go for what it looks like, you know, and then sound quality might be second nature. That's not us. That's not us. We are truly, truly concerned about being the best sounding equipment out there. What the XD technology did, I'll tell you what it did technically very quickly. It lowered the output impedance of the amplifier to levels that not every amplifier manufacturer can achieve because of the size and quality of the power supplies that we have in our units. By lowering the output impedance and doing other things to the signal and contouring, what it really did was it enabled the drivers in loudspeakers to react up to 30 to 35% faster than with competing designs. So for all intents and purposes, there's really more signal being delivered to the loudspeaker. And if that speaker is able to resolve that, you know, 30 to 35% more information, if you will, it translates into a real harmonic saturation, a richness of the sound. Some people have described the amplifiers, most people, as being organic and earthy and musical and non-hi-fi sounding. And that's exactly what it did. It took a good amplifier, the one that you heard, and transformed it into what our distributors and dealers are telling us. And I think if you went online and you started to look at some of the enthusiast forums on Facebook, and look at some of the things that we've been broadcasting of late, our distributors and dealers feel that the current Krell products are the best sounding Krell products that were ever manufactured.
I want to stop you right there just for 1 second. That was my next question. If you take dealers' feedback into consideration, and I'm glad you're addressing that before the question was presented to you, that was something that I always get curious about. If feedback from, you know, the end users and dealers are things that, you know, companies do study and take seriously, right? Because ultimately, though, they're going to be the ones spending money on your product.
Just today, we put out a broadcast just today from one of our dealers down in Texas, and we've been putting these out kind of on a weekly basis. And there's no question that Krell has not been marketing ourselves as much as we should be, but we've been spending a lot of time on infrastructure and trying to improve the company from the inside out. But one of our dealers said, in a field where obsession with sonic performance is the norm, the Krell audio video preamps, amps, and DACs truly stand out. I've heard many, many components, blah, blah, blah. Basically, the consensus amongst all of our partners is that they are the finest sounding Krell equipment available. Also, there's a really cool Facebook group called the Krell Enthusiasts Facebook group, and the gentleman who's the administrator of that group has a pair of our XD amplifiers and has had full power balanced Evo amplifiers. And everybody agrees. Everybody who's heard everything that we've put out in the past and has heard an XD amplifier says that they are definitely by far the best sounding amps we've ever put out. Jay, they're really kind of a combination of the great bass control and slam that Krell has always had, with an almost best of tube-like character in the mid-range and the high end.
Okay.
So it really is a really wonderfully saturated sound, a very musical sound, again, earthy and organic. And the imaging is improved. The specificity of placement of instruments within the soundstage has been considerably improved. With a guy who's been in the business for 45 years and has had amplifiers from multiple manufacturers and at much, much loftier price points, they truly are among the best. So that's why I called you. You know, I noticed that you put us in a particular tier, and I'm going, no, that's not where we belong, man.
So yeah, and you know, and a lot of that a lot of the context from that comes from what I have had in here, right? So, and I know that a lot of brands begin to evolve and get better with time. And to be fair, I'll be the first one to say I have not tried the XD series. I'll be more than happy to try it out, accommodate it, because as you know, at this level, everything will matter. A cable, the right interconnects, settling the amplifier in, right, letting it play for a few days before it really hits its stride. So I'm very familiar with that. I definitely do appreciate you, reaching out to me and giving me the opportunity, of course, to talk to you, because a lot of manufacturers, and I'll say it and I'll put it out there, not many people do what I do. If you go on YouTube, you're going to see either shows from the past, because we haven't had a show in a long time now, but you're never going to see end users like myself with this level of gear giving an opinion about it, with ownership, right? You're always going to see what could be a dealer, or what could be, the normal high, I wouldn't call it hi-fi, but the normal electronics, right? Normal price components. You're going to see a lot of reviews when it comes to that, never the ultra high end. And also, in addition to that, I wanted to say that any amp that was tested by me, that I brought on board, that I played with, that I actually got to spend time with, I've given it my maximum effort, even more now than before. I think before in the past I was a little too fast trying stuff out. Now, if you looked at my YouTube channel, you'll see a lot of my amplifiers reside with me a little longer, usually 3 months now. And I rotate them to understand the characters, and I take my notes. So now I'm in a position to give this XD series a hell of a shot, something that I really haven't done before, and see, what my feeling and my feedback is on it. Now, do you, and of course, and I wanted to ask you, going back to that same question, is when you create an amplifier and you are going to market it and you're decided, do you guys analyze who is next to you on that shelf? Like, if your amp is 20 grand, what do other brands offer the customer for 20 grand? Are we giving them the most that we can, given their options?
Truth be told, since COVID, we had a period